Okay, so now what I want to do is to try to understand, right? When was it that you began to feel, this strong memories for Chinatown? Was it later, or was it something that already was there in your childhood?
I I don't I don't think I really think about childhood or Chinatown until much later when I started working. And then in the second part of my so-called working life, when I was working with a Japanese company, I had to travel. And in the initial years, each time when I travel, I would be away for 3 to 3.5 months, right? In either doing training or doing assisting documentation work. So each time when I come back, I would see a different Chinatown. Of course, Singapore has changed, but the Chinatown moving so fast, right? Then what you see is okay, buildings without residents, buildings that disappeared, the old, noisy, dirty, wet Chinatown slowly disappeared. And and of course, in later days, because my mom was also very active in one of temple in Duxton Road, um, so in a way, we also find that a lot of these things have all disappeared. Within Singapore, it's like almost a diaspora. From Chinatown, these people went all over the place, and the community linkage has all slowly dissipated. The good and bad is that when you are having a small temple within, say, Chinatown, the people who go there are all within the community. So it's very interesting because when they have an event, it's like whole communities are out there. But when they move out, you have people coming from all over Singapore because they are all over the place. But over the years, as the devotees age, and once it goes into the third generation,
Yeah.
right, and with the fast pace of life, that's how a lot of these organizations uh, faded away.
Yeah. So when you say you were traveling and this later part of your working life, was this the 70s or later than that? Was this the 80s?
It is. I joined a new company in 1988.
Mm. What were the most visible, most impactful changes?
I guess first is physical in a way that when you walk around, you find that, like especially in Chinatown, right, you see the new HDB flats that were built, I think, after the demolition of the Art Deco flats along Smith Street and the other along Kreta IA. So I think that was a very big uh, patch of land that has changed. And of course, with that change, you find all the street activities have gone in a way indoor or underground, right? Because the wet markets have gone to the basement of the Chinatown complex.
Mm.
Those selling sundries would have moved into the ground floor, and those selling food would have gone into the second floor. And so I think I suppose Chinatown complex is still the one having the largest number of hawker stores,
Mm.
although it also has been evolving. The old hawkers have long gone, passed away, and the customers are no longer the same group of people who stay in the area. And so less and less people are coming here because everybody tell you, no, you want to have something, you want to have a coffee, any housing estate you have coffee, right? But what you miss is the environment, the familiar faces that you would
Mm.
meet in a coffee shop, right? I mean, that's where the stories, sharing of stories will happen in that coffee shop. Of course, they do happen now. Like if you stay long enough in the HDB estates, the community will form, and then you still find the old uncles sitting together to talk. But I'm sure the coffee shop's not going to allow you to sit there whole day.
Some people do.
Good for them if they don't get chased away,
I mean, and before Chinatown complex, there was People's Park, right? All these new complexes that are happening in Chinatown. Were you excited about them?
I suppose in a way because when something is new, right? So for us youngsters, so I remember when Chinatown complex was built over the old People's Park market, or so-called market. I only been there a few times in the early days. Uh, Once I remember my driver, the one who fetched us to school, uh, brought us there for a supper. And that was the only time that I got to experience what dining out was like in the old People's Park market, or what do you call it. And of course, when they started building the Chinatown complex, I suppose because of the big fire,
Yeah.
um, so by that time, I think I was already living in the either Cantonment Road or in Outram Park, and we
Uh,
would go down there to check out what's new. I mean, from that time until now, inside almost every shop has changed, right?
mm,
Yeah, but the structures are still there. Maybe add one or two travelator or escalator down there. Um, so to us, it's like wow, this is like a new complex, and of course, it's a modern air conditioned shopping center.
mm,
And definitely, we wouldn't even think of staying in those apartments upstairs. I mean, those are definitely privately owned. Right? Of course, outwardly the structure looks very big and strong to us. And of course, sad to say now there's already talk of en bloc.
yeah. Do you find that just now you talked about the shops, you so familiar with them in Chinatown? Did you did many of them move away, or did they move into these complexes, Chinatown complex or other complex, or they just you lost track of them?
I think I, I know some of them, especially those who sell food. Uh, Instead of Chinatown complex, they actually instead of this yeah, Chinatown complex, they move into what we call the Old People's Park.
Right.
Behind the People's Park complex, there is another block that sells all the textiles, and those are people who are displaced
Mm,
because of the fire. And that hawker center there has some shops that probably come from the other part of the Cantonese Chinatown. Right? One of them, as I know and also heard from the neighbors, is the one that's selling Yong Tau Fu. There are a few old ones still there, but I think probably now is probably half of it taken by more of the northern Chinese or the
mm,
mala stores, which is very popular with the mainland Chinese
mm.
and the young Singaporeans.
Yeah, because your wife Doris and her mother, they after the fire they had a store, right, in that, what do you call that, the
Yeah,
People's
she
Park
she
food
she
center
used to
and the
have
market above it.
yeah she used to the my mother-in-law used to have a textile shop in the old people's park,
Mm,
and then after the fire, I think they started rather they will actually offer this a store in the old, I call it the old people's park because it somehow doesn't have a name. Somebody called it People's Park Plaza. It didn't last, and we only know okay it's New Market Road, I think New Market Road, People's Park.
right.
Yeah. So at that
Yeah.
time it was like the second story, uh, the one that's nearer to the upper cross street of all selling textiles, and the other side over the other end nearer to the People's Park complex side are those selling all the what do you call hardware. So it's a still very useful place for us because whenever we need hardware, we just go there and get it. Of
Mm.
course, if you can speak Cantonese, because a lot of the hardware terms you're very familiar are all in Cantonese.
Yeah, I'm quite interested to study this, you know, appearance of all these complexes, right? To gather all the hawkers together or all the stall holders together, and what this did to the street life, right? How this affected the businesses that used to be there. I don't think all the businesses could have gone into the complexes. Some of them just not suitable, right, to go inside aircon uh, area.
Yeah, I suppose in the process of such a move, uh, some could have become better in terms of business. Some would have uh, given up, right? Uh, so and of course, I think during those days and even until now, very little research has been done on all these people in the movement. Right? Of course, if you're going to ask the old uncles, old aunties, say, why are you so interested? Right? And to them, it's just life. Right? It's their fate. But of course, they don't understand that such studies can actually help to have better planning.
Mm.
Right? In those days, I think it was more like, okay, let's have it done. And the best way is to clear the place before time is up. So you find in Singapore there are a lot of land that's laid barren for a period of time. I suppose from the early um, experience, right? This is my guess, right? It's so difficult to move people out from a kampongs nowadays, right? And much unhappiness. So do it while there is still enough time. We don't have to force them to move out. Um, but of course, for the older folks, there is a change of lifestyle. It's tough. That's why even in Chinatown now, you still see old folks going there because they have friends down there, right? Even my father might be when they move to Bedok, when they offer a house in Bedok, because they have to give up the Outram Park one room flat. He would still come down to his favorite barber in Outram Park, the bigger Outram Park. I mean, all of us are so used to certain places. It's not like you're going to go to a new complex and say, hey, I'm going to try this barber.
And some of the businesses also got offered terms, right, to go to the HDB estates, which can be very far away, including the hawkers.
I would think so because I
Mm.
think in those days it's more like whenever there's an opening, they're offered and that's whether you want to go. And you either take a plunge and hope that you can get new customers, right? I mean, new housing estates
Mm.
is a risk because the people are not there yet, um, not fully populated in the area. So I
Yeah.
think I think that kind of situation would be in a way fearful for some of these people, especially if they depend on it on their livelihood. But if they are not, then they start thinking of retiring, right? And of course, to us, it's like, especially if they are selling food, you're going to miss that good old cooking that we are used to, right? Of course, to the young people, it doesn't make much sense because I always feel that nostalgia plays a very important part in the appreciation of the taste of food. Right? When you eat
Mm.
something that's old, it reminds you of old days. Even the food is not that nice according to young people, right? So whenever you put in the Facebook, say, hey, this food is nice and that, yucks. Right? Well, because they have never tasted it before. They cook in the original way. See? Now there's a lot of artificial flavoring.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess also it's true that a lot of the older businesses and would have retired, right? Because they just thought higher rent or different location would just basically take the compensation and just retire.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think a number of them took the option because they felt they don't have the energy to restart the whole thing again.
Yeah.
Right?
Did you,
And
did you ever
yeah,
find those Craig Road or Cantonment Road, any of those familiar faces? You discover them elsewhere in Singapore.
these days, hardly. In the early days, I do meet some of them, and I was surprised once. I met someone in a colleague's house. Right? I mean, the world is smaller. Singapore is even smaller. Right? Um, Interestingly, is every now and then I get people who say they stay in Craig Road. Right? And that's why I have a Facebook dedicated to Craig Road and Duxton Road.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
How many
Uh,
groups do you
oh,
have?
oh, countless. Um, yeah, and interestingly, a few times I would go to Jalan Kuko Hawker Center, right? and have my brunch there or lunch there. And there's this store that sell yu jia kueh one, yu tiao, that has the street sign of Craig Road. So I was always curious because I remember I was bidding for that road sign, you know, and I think I lost by a couple of dollars because I think I only bid for $50 or something like that. So when I was showing interest, then of course the uncle there was looking at me and they said, "Hey, you're from Teng Tiang Pang." I say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." You know, I said, "Which part you stay?" You know, but he stayed in the lower part. So apparently, I probably have not met them because in those days, you know, we were very young. But we could identify the coffee shop and the other stores selling food in the morning, right? So in a way, we kind of make contact and greet each other every time when I go down there for brunch. But I think they're also slowing down because if I go there past 12:30, the store is closed. So some of these stores in the hawker centers, like in the past, they are actually early morning shops. They will start like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then by 12 o'clock they are closed. Even in Chinatown complex, and some of them they say, "Oh, this laksa is very good," you know, but I never get a chance because every time I go there at 10:30, it's closed.
So this one you were saying just now was what, youtiao, is it?
Yeah, they
Where
sell youtiao from Chimpeng, all this.
where did you find it? Where were they?
Uh, Jalan Kuku
Um,
Hawker Center.
okay.
I think block one. They have a small hawker center down there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there was one down there selling a very traditional old school Tu Huang Tiam Chai. You know, they call it the pig's organs. People will shudder when they see these kind of new terms they use, you know, pig's organs. Um, it, I've been taking there for a couple of years before I discovered that the uncle cooking there is a relative of my neighbor.
Mm.
So you never know when you're going to discover some connections, you know. But it always pays when you go to eat, you know, a few words here and there, and then you get to learn new things about the community.
Right. You can actually tell a lot of this movement history by the names of the stores, right? They keep the old names, but they are in totally different area.
Yeah, it's a very interesting phenomenon, I think. But I suppose that's one way for people to remember where they are from. And I mean, like you're not right. If you are from Chinatown and you go somewhere and say, "Hey, this is Chinatown beef noodles," no, the first thing is does does a person look familiar? Or the other thing is, I think I must try it because it's from Chinatown.
Yeah. Do you think also a lot of the memory of Chinatown has been the young people's memories in terms of, so when I say young people, I mean you, because when these changes were happening, you were young, right? And whereas the older people then in Chinatown, the ones who are maybe thinking of retiring, finding it very difficult or getting moved away from their community, it's been quite hard to document, their stories and their memories. A lot of it was lost because they also didn't have many years left, and maybe they passed away before people could get to them and document their memories.
Yeah, unfortunately, because I think it's one now it's even more challenging because first you got to encourage them to talk. It's not easy, right? I remember I was involved with the drama box and being part of the
Right.
Heritage Society, and we organized a session at the Senior Activity Center where I invited two persons, one from Suntang and the other one is Mr. Lee Kok Liang, to talk to them in Cantonese. Right? I mean, if you speak in Mandarin, it's already like 80% lost. Right? They don't understand, and they're not going to respond to you in Cantonese because they think you don't understand. So when you speak Cantonese, um, then they warm up. Of course, to help them with the memory, we brought along Cantonese pastries and things like this, no, so that you can eat and talk. And these two guys was very good. They came up with the idea, let's sing a Cantonese opera. No? I always loved that moment because then they showed the lyrics of Tai Lui Fa, no? Right? Now, any Cantonese who are in the Merdeka and the pioneer generation would know Tarifa. But this group of people down there, when these two uncles sang, he has to look at the lyrics and sing, right? Because they are not really into operas in that sense. But when you hear a 102-year-old lady, I think a Samsui woman, sang the Tarifa without even looking at the text, which I think she probably is not literate as well, but they learn all by heart, right? And when you go into that stage, you find that then they start telling you the stories of Yapun Kai La, everything all start coming out from there. So it was a very good session, and I think they follow up more to come up with the performance called the Chinatown Crossing, right? The story of the march and all these kind of things. So I think it can be done, but it's getting more and more difficult because our young people who might be interested to do it don't have the language capability. Right? In fact, I was trying to push ideas to some of the people involved and say, why don't we have a human library and speak in Cantonese, Hokkien, Teochew? Of course, there's going to be less, but still in Singapore, Chinatown, we have Cantonese visiting from China, Hong Kong. They all are always very, interested. Right? Even the mainland Chinese are very interested in how the Chinese diaspora lived and survived, right? And I think those will make it very colorful in Chinatown. And I was telling all these people, hey, you want to do a tour of Chinatown in Cantonese? And there's a class on Chinese history in Kong Chau Wei Kun that is conducted in Cantonese. Right? So we know there are people who are interested in Cantonese. I know long ago I attended one, just kind of go in and take a look, and that was on Cantonese classical, or rather poetry, classical poetry in Cantonese, conducted by I think Ao Yipak at the Guangdong Huiguan. So we have all these kind of people who are in a way still interested. The question now is how to bring them back where they can actually share. I think we did one. The Holiday Society did one block cut store at the Chinatown complex, and we get the young people to man the place. You look at the old folks who come and they want to share story with the young people. They usually like to share with the young people. Say, you don't know about these stories, and they can stay there for hours.
Yeah, put the young people there as target, right?
Yeah. But provided they're interested, because if you show this interest, that's it.
When was it that you started? So I think when I talked to your mother, the time you were still working, I think, and she said that you would take a lot of photographs of Chinatown. Is that right? When you began to try to document and capture old Chinatown.
A bit here and there, because when I was working, there's hardly any chance. But that was when I was working. I started. I bought a Nikon F2. Right, that was my first attempt, and actually, interestingly, when I was in secondary school, we formed a photographic society, and I got this friend of mine. He keep begging me and said, "No, you must hate the photographic society." I said, "I got no camera. We poor people we have camera." And I don't know why he pulled out and gave me one very old, big format Zeiss camera. Now I don't know where I kept it. It was very good photographs it produced. Then, of course, when I started working, probably the first camera I had was a Nikon that's more what you call professional in a way, but not the professional model. And those were the time when my mom was very active in the temples. Then festive periods you got to carry joysticks and pray. So I offered, can I trade in the joysticks with camera? So I offered to document the processions, all this, by taking pictures.
When was this?
Probably 1970s. I think
That's
I bought
a
my
long time ago. Do you where are all these photos? Are they online?
Unfortunately, those pictures I took for the camera, for the temples, I give everything to them, including the negatives. And when the temple kind of closed down, the whole lot disappeared. So the only person who has those pictures is Ronnie Pinsler,
Mm.
because he was the early documenter with all his photographs, and he has thousands of them, And he also record the temple that my mother was active in. That's how I first met him. Um, and he still have very good pictures. I mean, he got his Leica and
Mm.
all this, he
Mm.
documents that, and he has them digitized. I think he donated 25,000 to NAS. So lucky for us, because of him, we still have those photographs. The challenge now is who can identify what's happening in those photographs. And he's still asking. He's still asking people to share what they know about those. So for me, it's only, I think, when we started with the digital camera,
Mm.
that is easier. And even now, all my hard disks are all, what do you call it, overflowed with the pictures. I have a problem keeping them, so I tumpang with my brother, who has a bigger hard disk. Every now and then, I'll go back and take a look at those pictures, and I share on Facebook, because I think at least it is floating somewhere, and
Mm.
some people might find it useful.
Right. What are the oldest photos you have?
You mean those that I've taken?
Mm.
I cannot remember offhand, but there are some that are still only in prints, and
Mm.
those are mainly in the days when I was active in the Goethe Institute, where I learned German. And we have a lot of activities every month. So we took a lot of pictures of those parties and all those storytelling. Um, and after that, it's mainly temples. At one time when I was working, I was so crazy that every time after work, I would drive to wherever there's a temple event to document, And those are the days when temples are still not very welcoming to anybody taking pictures. They're always wondering, what are you taking pictures for? But now it's like anywhere you go, you're going to have not only cameras, but you're going to have handphones all over the place that you almost impossible to take any good pictures. But which is good, because that's one way to bring the young people back into our culture, right?
Mm.
I mean, it's our cultural heritage, and at least to take picture, you need to understand what is this all about.
Tell us about your love of temples. Where does that come from? Is that personal religion or is that cultural also?
I suppose it started off because I want to trade my camera in place of the joysticks, right? And then of course, uh, you document, and then because my mother is active, so it's first it's obligatory that I must take pictures for the activities in her temple where she's involved, and then I get to meet this professor from Canada. I always quote her that she's my goddess or Matu, Jundi Bernardi. She came to Singapore, and she visited the temple, and I was thinking, hey, what is this Amo doing here? No, maybe it's a tourist. So I offered to show her a little bit of the temple. And of course, to my surprise and even shock, she speaks Mandarin and Hokkien,
Yeah, yeah.
right? She did a lot of research and has books on temples in Penang. So that got me thinking, if a foreigner is interested in our culture, why are we not interested in our culture? How do I share this with my children, right? And I think that's one reason why many Chinese, in a way, change their beliefs, because they don't understand their own culture, right? And Chinese is difficult, right? Don't talk about 1 year. Now it's even more difficult. I once asked a Taoist master, hey, why don't you translate in English? Now he says it's impossible. It's easier for you to study Chinese to understand. So you can imagine how difficult, how challenging it is. And of course, that was about a time when there was email list. So as an offspring from the Heritage Society's email list on heritage that was created by Eileen, I created another one on Taoism Singapore, which I felt probably people perceive it more as religion than anything. So rather have it something separate so that we don't cause unnecessary problems with other people. And that took off. And there are people who are very curious. There are researchers who are very curious. There are also people who became mediums without understanding why. And so we put them
Uh,
together to share. right? So those are time when with an email you can share pictures. Although in the very old modem, it's very challenging to share photographs. But over the years, it's becoming easier. And so when Facebook came along, I created one on Facebook because that's where all the young people can share all the photographs. So even today, if you look at Facebook on Tourism Singapore, there are tons of pictures and videos down there. Uh, of course, people question, hey, is that Tourism Singapore? Or is that tourism? And my reply is that is basically just a kind of a cultural heritage platform, because you can never put a finger to define what is Taoism compared to the Chinese belief in folk religion, the influence of Buddhism and Confucianism. That's in a nutshell.
When you talk about documenting and Taoism and temples, is it where is the line between the study of religion and the study of heritage? Is there such a line, you think?
I suppose very difficult to draw a line, right? I mean, I started off with that. I call it naive thinking that hey, whatever we're doing is Taoism, Taoism. And then as we go deeper and deeper, we find oh, okay, there's the philosophical Taoism, there's the religious Taoism, there's the folk beliefs, there's shamanism, you name it. So it's very challenging to say which is which. So I rather leave it kind of blur and vague. And my answer to most people is when I create this platform, is for you to find your own answers. We always say that all of us are on the same journey. We might have different paths coming in. We might have different paths going out. Right. So I think there's no one definite answer of drawing the line between which is which. But like I also telling a lot of people now, if you look at the Chinese beliefs as a cultural thing, a cultural heritage, it's easier to see things, right? If you start thinking about beliefs, religion, 宗教, then you pick one, what do you call it, one teachings against another, right? And until recently, most Chinese, especially those traditional ones who somehow accepted the three beliefs. So Chinese call it Sanjiao, right? So basically, you cannot run away from Confucius teachings, right? Buddhism has in many ways kind of influenced the beliefs, right? Everybody's confused. What is Kuan Yin? Is Kuan Yin Buddhist? Is Kuan Yin Taoist? Right? And then, of course, folk religion is interesting because it's evolving. And if you look at Taiwan, Taiwan is probably the biggest influencer to the folk religion in a way, although they're very strong in other religions, Buddhism, whatever. So you find that things are evolving, right? New ideas come out, new schools started. Um, in Singapore, you can find new Sentan, and you can find old Sentan disappearing. I suppose that's how things will evolve. And like I always subscribe to what they say, no, 道法自然, right? That means let things go naturally, and you get to enjoy the world as you learn new things.
Do you feel that besides Taoism and temples, there are other aspects of Chinatown's heritage that should be received more attention, more documentation?
Yes, because if you look at so-called Chinatown as a space, right? I mean, Chinatown is the term that people think that it's everything to do with Chinese, although it's not true, right? A lot of Chinatowns around the world is also not necessarily Chinese culture or people. Sri Hamaman Temple is probably one of the oldest Hindu temple, right? Said to be the space given to the founding person by Raffles. Um, and they have interacted with the Chinese community for the longest time, right? Every New Year, they have a special party for the less fortunate. Although it's very quiet, only recently you can see ministers being invited there. Then you have the Julian Mosque, right? Um, in South Bridge Road. If you go to Gyeongsang Road, you see the Ganesha Temple. If you go across into Telok Air, right next to the King is also the Julian Mosque, And on the other side is, I don't know what they call now. It's probably started off as a kind of shrine, right? And of course, behind you have the other Li Tongping's temple called Central King, right? So you have Chinese temples, you have
Mm.
mosques. Of course, it's predominantly more Chilean Indians because I think these are the people who came in the early days, right? Even in the basement of UOB building, there is a mosque, which I think only probably the Muslims and a handful of non-Muslim know about existence. Yeah, so I think those are areas that probably deserve more visibility. There might be a lot of studies like the one at the Club Street. Club Street, there's used to be one pondok, right? Suddenly I cannot remember the name of that Indonesian group. They have a pondok down there. Of course, friends still used to tell me, "Hey, there's a Malay village down there in Chinatown." I think there's some students who really research in that pondok.
Yeah, I mean, of course, someone can say, if you want to study Hindu temples, go to Serangoon, or study mosque, go to Kampong Glam. But I think if you do it in a more different, diverse space culturally, you can get a better sense of how culture, religion works in a multiracial society.
Yeah, in fact, I think a couple of years back, I think the Heritage Society did we call it the walking workshop in Chinatown area. So they lead tours that goes to different places of worship. And I think that gives the people a better perspective of how the Singaporeans can work together, live together, and yet have their own beliefs. I mean, I think diversity is very important. In the old days, all of us can live together. Even in the kampong, you can have a 7-month festivals, and you still have the non-Chinese sitting together. And of course, those who can eat and drink will eat and drink. Those who cannot will still join in the fun. Um, and partly because of the old village communities, you find that people get to know each other better. They are not segregated like HDB flats because once you go home, you shut the door. There's less chance of interaction other than in the lift. We always make friends in the lift. Happen to meet each other, and I say, I haven't seen you for a year. But we didn't you didn't take the same lift. So I think those are important. If you look at the Water Street, the Kuan Yin Temple and the Sri Krishna Temple, that's a very interesting space because you find mainly the Indians, I suppose the Hindu Indians and the Chinese, they will visit both places to worship. I used to organize a Chinese New Year Eve tour, and we will end up at the Waterloo Street Kuan Yin. And the last stop after that is to go to the Sri Krishna temple because there is a statue of Kuan Yin inside there. They will put up as well. So you can see to them they are more inclusive. They can welcome anybody, whatever belief you have, even the small part of it. They are very welcoming. Of course, having said that, there are other places worship where they are welcoming. The only thing is most people dare not go in because of not understanding what is it all about, and it's here rather than get yourself into trouble, right? In some places, dress code is very important, and so they'd rather not go in and create problems.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
if you have somebody who is willing to share with you and bring you in, I think that's the best lah.
that's the best way to study the multiculturalism and religion in Singapore, right? Where actually, the place where, as you mentioned, the Kuan Yin is inside the temple and all that. The gods are side by side, actually, right?
Yeah, so that's why it's also very interesting that you find there are some Chinese temples where they have uh, Hindu gods, right? I think there is one, as far as I know, there's one Hindu temple in Changi, near Changi village, where you have the so-called Chinese gods inside as well.
Yeah, I think I shared on Facebook before. I went to do an interview at a home of a Malayali person, and you have all the different gods. Chinese, Jesus is there, and the Hindu is there as well.
There's a Teochew organizations that respect all the 5 religions.
Mm.
The Dejiao and all this. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. But of course, there's not enough publicity lah, for people to really understand. And I think this is something that more could be done. More could be done to bring them and then to share with them uh, the beliefs and why they respect the different religions.